Welcome to the DraftKings Daily Trot. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Russell Clay at Russell J. Clay. Taking a look at tonight's DK slate here for baseball. And overall, I mean, there's a lot of kind of top options as far as pitching goes, and a lot of guys that necessarily we weren't on, but that doesn't mean, you can kind of pick against them either.
Yeah, we get to drown out our sorrows of Cleveland getting smashed again in the finals, Game 3 tonight. So we might as well sweat out some DFS baseball while that's going on.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I personally enjoy watching LeBron bat out of
Yeah, I realized once I said that most of the population actually is enjoying the beat down that's going on right now. But I do not. So I think distracting myself with some DFS baseball is the way I'm going about it.
Yeah, I mean, it serves a purpose there,
Mm-hmm.
Looking at catcher here, and I think this is kind of a spot to pay down that, even though
Yeah.
there are a couple names. I mean, we talked pitching. I mean, there's going to be some high pay up options, but there's also some low ranges that could make you even have some extra cash to look behind the dish. Stephen Vogel's kind of the guy I'm looking at. I mean, obviously Chase Anderson is kind of a reverse splits guy, but he isn't really good against lefties either. He's not that strong, so I think Vogt in that ballpark is a nice fit for me.
He isn't really good. So, no. You could have just ended it there. I'm looking at Lucroy as a weird contrarian play. I actually think his ownership's going to be way down because it's going to be tough to fit him in there with two of those higher priced options. So he is a good option. You're not going to be able to get him if you pay up for the two higher priced guys, either Darvish, Scherzer, or Syndergaard. But if you can get the room, I do think he's in a good spot. And you could get him at a lower ownership. But yeah, I think Vogt's the good call there if you're looking down and more realistic. I also like McCann against Weaver. I think that's a solid matchup for him. So only 3,600.
Yeah, I'm all over McCann. I like these Yankees bats quite a bit. They're not that expensive. You look at Weaver, 330 will allowed to lefties, big 1.43 runs per nine since 2014 in Yankee Stadium with that short porch out there and right. I'm expecting quite a few balls to kind of leave the yard off Weaver.
Yeah. Wilson Ramos again. It's a little expensive. But I do think it's worth it, especially with Shields sort of getting his first start for a new team. I'm okay with that. It's still though. I think I'd rather save that 400 where I can.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And kind of looking lower, I mean, this is once again, I think this is a night where maybe we see someone jump out, but I think a guy who I'm looking at the moment, as far as low as I'm going to go, is JT Realmuto at 3,100. I don't mind this Marlins team against Nolasco here. Nolasco is a lot of 352 woe, but a righty since 2014. Been up and down this year. Relatively high run total in this game on both sides, so I'm kind of looking here at Realmuto is kind of that cheap option, and if there's anyone that opens up below in a better spot, that's when I kind of will dive down.
Yeah, the Butera and Romines of the world don't look like they're getting the start tonight. So those would usually be pump plays I look to, but they're not really going to be in the lineup. Kurt Suzuki against Chen, 2,500. The upside's really capped with Suzuki, but I guess you could throw him in there if you're truly looking to punt down. And then obviously Cervelli out of play against Syndergaard. So even down low, I think you try to look to stay in that 3K range right now, just because there doesn't seem to be much value down there.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. Moving on to first base here. At first base, I mean, it's not the greatest spot for me to pay up. I mean, I'm not a big fan of 4,800 Hosmer. I can see GPP-wise using him. I'm not a fan of the Votto lefty on lefty. Eovaldi's been tough on right-handers. I think the three of them are still intriguing GPP options because Votto's obviously had a decent success against lefties in the past. But overall, I mean, Garcia's, a guy who does stabilize left-handed hitters. So,
yeah.
The guy who I'm looking at is Matt Adams at 3,900 against Alfredo Simon. I mean, that just kind of screams one, points per dollar value, great
Mhm.
ballpark, great matchup against Simon. And Adams, I mean, been hitting the ball well of late. So I think at the price, he kind of comes in as the number one option, which is weird to say on usually at first base.
I like that quite a bit. 3,900 solid. I think we're trying to stack these Cardinals tonight. Adams could be one of those main guys, I think, and especially out of first base, that's kind of not as strong as it usually is, weirdly enough. So, Ortiz against Bumgarner too. So, I mean, that's tough. I think Adams is a great play at 39, especially compared to who the other matchups are for the top end guys.
Yeah, definitely. And you can kind of spin down. I mean, we mentioned the Yankees bats being in a favorable spot. Alex Rodriguez starting to come around, a couple 2-hit games of late. You're looking at, Weaver, big home run potential for a lot of these Yankees, and especially A-Rod. So he's worthy of a play for me.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I mean, I'm still sticking with Matt Adams against a lot of these guys in the mid range. I think you kind of want to just look to pay down here.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of guys and a lot of bad matchups. So I'm kind of with you. I mean, I don't see a real need to spin up and take a big chance. Um, I think Pujols might be the guy that I do it with just because he has been hitting the ball well of late, and it's a great
Mhm.
ballpark. And it's not quite a killer price tag like it is a Votto or a Hosmer. So really, I think Matt Adams takes a lot of guys out of play.
And a guy that's been popping up a lot in the optimizer, and I'm sort of out on for this year until I see something significant. And it's Prince Fielder in another good spot, but I just can't do it. I, I don't know, and it doesn't seem to be failing me. Obviously, the historical splits against pretty much anyone are going to look good for him, but this past year has just been rough, and I just don't think you can trust him right now.
No, he's no. I just have a board right over here, and it says "Do Not Play" list, and it's Prince Fielder. It's just Prince Fielder's face. That's it.
It's unfortunate because he'd be a guy that I want to spin down to, but I can't do it. And then obviously you have Abreu against Scherzer, Jaso against Syndergaard,
Yeah, it's
um,
tough.
and then Hanley against Baumgartner. I mean, Jesus.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that sums it up. I mean, there's a lot of above average to elite pitchers on the hill tonight, and it kind of takes a lot of
Mhm.
these guys out of play.
And I mean, I guess you could take a look at James Loney, if he's in the lineup 2,600 against the rookie starter here. So that's super cheap, but not necessarily an optimal option.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, you kind of bank on him having a rougher start just because it is the debut, because
Right.
he is giving me a quality arm.
Hmm.
Looking at second base here, and Daniel Murphy, I mean, 5,100. It's a guy if you're kind of paying down to the pitcher spot. You can look at, obviously, just because Shields has been prone to the long ball, especially against lefties. Now moving to that ballpark, Nationals could kind of give him a tough debut there in the South Side.
Yeah. Again, I said on the pitcher pod, I think Daniel Murphy smells blood. He's dipping
Da-da,
down. He's dipping
da-da,
down.
da-da,
Huh?
da-da-da-da-da.
Murphy obviously dipping down a little bit from what he was doing earlier in the year, but he's still hitting well. Obviously had a big night the other day, and 5,100, I'm okay with that price, and I mean I'm okay with paying for both him and Harper tonight. So I like the Nationals tonight. Altuve obviously not touching him against Darvish.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. Murphy's that kind of the top play, and it's very hard for me to get away from Odor in Profar. Obviously, Profar is he doesn't have the shortstop eligibility anymore, so you got a tough decision to make.
Yeah,
A lot,
it's
a lot is
Colorado.
bumming me out today, man. I mean, Profar
It's
no shortstop eligibility. The price is up. What
Profar
happened? All in a nice
was so
span.
much. Profar was so much fun. I like that guy. But yeah, now it's tough. Now you got to make that decision. Um, I do like both, but I think I got to lean Odor here.
Yeah, I think so too. It's tough though because Profar has just been really consistent of late. He
Hmm.
just kind of seems to go out there and I mean, he's been above 5 fantasy points. He's been above 8 and 9 of the last 10. So he's been really consistent. Definitely deserving of the price tag. It's not like the price tag is tough to fit in. So
Right.
I still think I don't know, man. I mean, it's tough to choose, but I like both of them. So I think it's going to be one where I just mix in both shares.
I guess the question is, he's been super chalky of late. Do you just I think he is again as well, even at 4K. So do you fade that because of the ownership, or do you just kind of go back to it anyway?
I still think you kind of jump all over it. I don't think
Yeah.
like I'm not going to let ownership have a big factor whether I play him or not because I mean he is in a big spot. But I do agree with you. I think Odor is kind of the pivot to make you. He's probably going to be the lower owned out of the two just because one, Profar's been super consistent. But I mean you look at Odor. I mean he does have monster upside, so
Hmm.
I think you can kind of look both ways.
Yeah. Some other guys here. Whit Merrifield against Tillman. I'm okay with that. Again, I think I'm okay with the Royals as I feel like I've said this a lot this year, but the Royals as a contrarian stack, they just give pitchers a hard time, and I don't think Tillman's necessarily an ace or anything like that. So I think they could get to him, and if that's the case, they have some hidden upside there.
Yeah, definitely. And a guy you've been on lately. I mean, Starling Castro, 3,300, back-to-back games with a
Mhm.
homer. Another chance against a home run prone pitcher here at home. I think he's in play kind of in all formats.
Yeah, yeah, definitely like him. They didn't raise his price too much, so still pretty reasonable. Definitely fit him in. Probably prefer to do that than kind of pay up tonight, honestly, unless you're getting a Murphy, which is going to be tough to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I mean, there's three different ranges you can kind of go, and I feel comfortable using all of them. So if I can't pay up for a Murphy, if the mid range of, Profar and Nador is too high, swing down to a Castro isn't a bad idea.
Hmm.
Look at third base here, and I mean, you're looking at Carpenter against Alfredo Simon is kind of the elite play, but
Yeah.
you got to kind of pay up for it. I don't mind it. I think he is the top option. So that is something that I like quite a bit. And one, because I think this is once again another spot to pay down with tonight, which isn't bad because you're paying up in pitcher anyway.
Yeah, I think you got to fire a Cardinal stack out there tonight just for old time's sake. And this matchup's perfect. And I mean, if Simon gets beat up, you obviously want to get to that Reds bullpen. So, I'm in on that. Machado, not a horrible matchup, but I think I'd just rather get the extra 400 and Carpenter there.
Yeah, I agree. You look at Machado. I mean, coming off a night where got into a little wrestling match with Jordana Ventura, so I expect those guys to be in the lineup just because you would appeal suspensions and deal with all that stuff anyway. We saw it with the Dorian Bautista. Hell,
Right.
they played a week and a half before they eventually sat
No
out. So.
kidding. Every night we were like, hey, is tonight the night? No? Oh, all right. Oh, Batista's been leadoff. All right.
Yeah, so I mean, I think that's the solid play. And Dietrich against Alaska, 3,700 isn't a bad choice. I like A-Rod still at 36. You have that luxury of using him both ways.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's kind of a number of different ways that you can go with. Because really, I mean, this is a spot where it's not deep. It's not a deep position tonight. It's not really a deep position anywhere outside of outfield.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it's kind of rough. The guys you usually want to pay down for, a Marwin, he's in a super tough matchup, so you're not looking there. And I mean, you kind of just wait on this one, I think, unless you go for a Carpenter. I might just try to wait this one out and see what pops out in the 20 to 2K to 2,500 range.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of go that route. I mean, you could see a cheap Justin Turner play pop up. I mean, reverse splits guy, but obviously hit third at that value below 3K still in play for me on tonight's slate.
Mm-hmm.
Martin Prado at 3,200. I still don't think Velasco is anything to kind of shy away from. So I think you can kind of look at those guys if cheap. And then I'm with you. I mean, this is a slate where I'm looking to see where the value pops up when the lineups come out.
Yeah, definitely.
So Looking at shortstop here, that this is a spot you could pay up for and feel pretty comfortable about. I don't mind Jonathan Villar, Corey Seager. I really don't mind them as far as GPPs go, but I just think price considered, there is some range that you can kind of spin down to.
Yeah, I do like those guys as top options. Aledemys Diaz, obviously, in that Cardinals stack. You're definitely looking there. Um, I don't. I'll be honest. I don't have my mind made up on this Indians lineup yet. I don't know if I want to throw a stack in there. I'm probably not going to though. Lindor kind of intriguing at 4,100 though.
Yeah, you look at all these Indians bats. I mean, they are cheap. We saw Kitness at 3,700. You saw Napoli below 4K. So, yeah, I mean, I think one-offs wise, I don't mind them
Hmm.
because I mean Walker hasn't been all that special this year, or more so of late. And this Indians team is a tough, and they got some quality names. So I think you can kind of look at those guys and feel relatively comfortable at the price tag.
Yeah, and then the last thing I'm thinking about doing is maybe throwing some one-off Red Sox in there. Bogart's only 3,900. I think that's sort of a weird way to go. And for one night, you can get a Red Sox at like 5%, you know? So uh, I think that's an okay move tonight for 3,900. Obviously, if they were like 5K, you don't do it, but 39, you don't need too much out of them. So
No, I agree. It's a reasonable price tag. I mean, Bogarts is hammered lefties, certainly playable for me. Johnny Peralta, it's going to be only a matter of time before we get some Diaz and Peralta ownership, or not ownership, position eligibility changed.
mhm,
But Peralta is kind of your cheaper Diaz at 3,700. I like him as well.
right.
So, and as you mentioned, I mean, kind of lower. I think this is another spot where it's tough. I mean, you can look at Alcides Escobar 2,900 as far as the leadoff guy goes against Tillman. I don't hate that. So he would be kind of the viable punt option for me there.
Yeah, I think that's what we're looking at for now.
Yeah. Looking over at the outfield here, a lot of guys I just don't feel like I'm going to be able to pay up for. Um, Above 5K, it's very tough for me. I think going lower, I don't feel bad because you got a Matt Holliday at 46, you got a Bryce Harper at 46, a Cole Calhoun at 4,500. So that for me, those guys are kind of my tier one, not necessarily a Braun or a Trumbo or anything like that. I mean, Piscotty, if you're going the full Cardinals stat.
My God, Mark Trumbo, though. What a animal he's been over the last month. It's crazy. Anyway, but he's just having a crazy month right now. I don't think he can sustain this, but I said that a few days ago, and he is just doing it every night still. So, you got me, Trumbo. I'm not doubting you anymore, but I can't see myself necessarily paying up for him unless I do an Oriole stack tonight. So, RIP me then, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And kind of looking cheap. I mean, there's a lot of guys. We're looking at a lot of those Yankees bats. We've talked about Weaver being bad. You can
Hmm.
look at a Beltran and Ellsbury, a Gardner, and feel pretty good about it.
Stanton versus Nolasco.
Yeah, this Marlins offense is cheap against Nolasco, and we talked about Nolasco being a boomer bust option. And you roll the dice, and I rather roll the dice on the Miami offense than actually picking Nolasco in my lineups.
Yeah, Stanton's bad right now. Like, you know.
He is. Yeah, he's been awful this year. I am not saying he's been good. I mean, it's
I
just
I I got my Stanton shares out early. Like I started him when he started to go on this bad streak, and it just was like 4 straight days of all strikeouts, and I was like, okay, I'm done with this. This was enough for me. And I think everyone else is getting it out right now, but man, it's tough to play him right now, even at reduced prices.
yeah, no, I definitely agree. And when you got Nomar Mazar at 4K, that takes a lot of top appeal options out just because of how good he's
Yeah.
been, how bad
Yeah.
Fisher's been against lefties.
Hmm.
Mazar comes in as kind of an easy plug and play for me tonight.
I think so as well. Borderline cash for me. I just everything about that is good. Green, go.
Yeah, no, I agree. And these Dodger bats are going to have some value with Kike Hernandez and Trace Thompson facing the lefty there. Russin,
Hmm.
not a good left-handed pitcher, 364 WOB, obviously a Coors guy, but still not a quality arm anyway. So I think, I mean, both of those guys open up spots in the outfield to feel pretty comfortable with.
Definitely.
So, anyone else you're looking at? I mean, I think there are some decent value options, and then that mid tier kind of takes the cake for me as far as where I'm going to be heading tonight, and which is kind of an obvious calls.
Yeah, I mean, I like Naquin if he's in the lineup. I'm not too worried about Walker. I think he's got blow up potential. So, if he's in the lineup, definitely keep an eye on him. And then, I mean, below that, it's tough. If Ichiro's in the lineup, just like we were talking about, Miami Marlins super cheap. So, Ichiro 2,600, that's a solid value. But beyond that, there's some good pitchers out there tonight. So it's not totally easy to find punt plays, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And uh, Byron Strikeout Buxton, as you call
Mm,
them, I mean, in play against Chen for me as far as a punt GPP
yeah,
option.
for
So,
sure.
yeah, different ways you can go tonight. A lot of value on the slate, which is nice with the pitching. So, should be a fun one.
Definitely.
That's going to wrap things up here with the DK Daily Trot. Be sure to check out DailyFantasyCafe.com for all the great tools and content.